call the roll.
Kane.
Present.
Anderson.
Here.
Bernal.
Here.
Goodwin.
Here.
Harris. Kitzman. Rosenthal.
Here.
Timish.
Here.
Wilson.
A quorum is present. As a reminder, anyone present today wishing to testify before the committee, please register at the kiosk located in the hallways behind the hearing rooms. Please contact committee staff if you require assistance in registering to testify today. Due to the number of witnesses we have registered, and the fact that we've got to go to the floor in 2 hours, there's going to be a time limit of 2 minutes per witness during the public testimony period. House Committee on Administration has established an electronic public comment portal for all Texans. Directions on how to submit those public comments on the portal can be found in today's hearing notice. Members, I know that some of you may need to leave today at certain points, and so for those members of the audience, please understand that they may have other bills to lay out in other committees, or they may need to go somewhere to vote or take a meeting. So it's not that they don't think what you have to say is interesting. They might not think it's interesting, but that's not why they're leaving. But my goal is for us to finish before the floor and then not have to come back after. So we'll start today by voting on a few bills and then move to the public testimony portion. All right, members. Yep. One sec. Okay. Chair lays out Senate Bill 1523. Members, this is the identical Senate version of House Bill 3049 by Representative Anderson that has the committee heard and voted out 8-0 on March 27th. The bill relates to the dismissal of a baseless or unfounded complaint filed by the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. Representative Anderson moves that Senate Bill 1523, without amendment, be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Kane.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Bernal.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Harris. Kitzman. Rosenthal.
Aye.
Timish.
Aye.
Wilson.
There being 6 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. Chair lays out, as pending business, House Bill 1545 by Representative Clardy. Members of the bill we previously heard that relates to the continuation and function of the state's Soil and Water Conservation Board and the Texas Invasive Species Coordinating Committee. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute?
Hearing none.
Yep. Just make sure we lay it down. One moment. We're going to back up, members, real quick. The chair offers up a committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of that committee substitute? Hearing none, the substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 1545, as substitute, be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Kane.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Bernal.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Harris. Kitzman. Rosenthal.
Aye.
Timish.
Aye.
Wilson.
There being 6 ayes and 0 nays, the motion fails. The chair lays out as pending business House Bill 1772 by Representative Ashby. Members of the bill we previously heard that relates to the documentation required for the purchase of certain timber products. Is there an objection to the adoption? No, the chair lays out, offers up a committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 1772, as substituted, be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Kane.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Bernal.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Aye.
Harris. Kitzman. Rosenthal.
Aye.
Timish.
Aye.
Wilson.
There being 6 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. All right, members, we're going to move on to hearing bills. By the way, Bernal, you're up. The chair lays out House Bill 2509 and recognize Representative Bernal to explain the bill. Real quick, though, members, there's a committee substitute. The chair offers a committee substitute.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to make this quick. For the members, the committee substitute just allows the Department of Ag to fund the program. This is HB 2509. It allows the Department of Agriculture to develop and maintain an account to help communities create grocery stores in what is known as a food desert. I will explain to you what that is. The definition that's most used for food desert, and I think it's the one that we would use, well, I know it's the one we would use. You have at least 500 people, or 33% of a census tract must have low access to a supermarket or grocery store, and the tract's median family income must be at or below 80% of the area median income. Additionally, if it's in an urban area, the nearest grocery store has to be further than a mile away, and in a rural area, it'd be more than 10 miles away. There are over 6 million people in Texas who live in situations like this. They don't have, they're not close enough to a grocery store without it being a challenge. And I'm not making light of this, but one of our colleagues has a bill that would allow doctors to prescribe healthy food as opposed to having people end up needing medicine. You know, an apple's cheaper than insulin. So what this would do is try to solve that food desert problem by allowing the Department of Agriculture to essentially take proposals from nonprofits and other organizations where they're trying to either build or maintain or expand an existing grocery store in order to provide healthier options for the residents. I have a whole long layout here, but that is the gist. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We do have some resource witnesses from the Department of Ag just to talk about the way that they would handle the accounting part of it. But otherwise, I think I'm your one and only resource, and I'll do my very best to answer your questions. I reserve the right to close. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, members, would you like to hear from any resource witnesses? Excellent. I'm glad to see we all trust Representative Bernal. Members, any questions for the author? I think that's a good thing. It's a good bill. All right. One moment. Okay. Was there anybody who wished to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2509? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Bernal to close on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Just very quickly, programs like this in other states have proven to be very successful, and this, although it sounds novel, it is not. People in this building have been trying to pass a bill like this since 2013, and we're just the latest to sort of grab it and run with it. So with that, thank you very much, and I close.
Thank you, Representative Bernal. Is there an objection? The chair withdraws the committee sub. Is there objection? Hearing none, the committee substitute is withdrawal. And if there's no objection, the bill would be left pending. Is there an objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. All right. Chair lays out House Bill 4644, recognizes Representative Timish to explain the bill. With those members, there's a committee substitute. The chair offers a committee substitute.
Thank you, Chairman and Vice Chair Anderson, and members of the Ag and Livestock Committee for giving me the opportunity to lay out House Bill 4644. And the committee substitute for House Bill 4644 creates a public agricultural alert system to notify interested parties of pest or diseases of regulatory concern. Texas citizens are heavily impacted by the introduction of agricultural pests and diseases that warrant regulatory action. Disease quarantines have significant implications on the movement of plant and animal products that affect breeders, growers, retailers, and private citizens. Too often, formal communication is lacking on new quarantine boundaries, updated compliance agreements, and fines of pests or diseases of regulatory concern. House Bill 4644 directs the Texas A&M Agricultural Extension Service in cooperation with the Texas Department of Agriculture, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and Texas Animal Health Commission to create a public alert system for pest and disease involving plant and wildlife in Texas. Texas A&M Agri-Life Extension Service, in keeping with its educational mission, would collect interested parties' email addresses through an online portal and distribute the information collected by the state agencies. This is an opt-in system. Texas Department of Agriculture, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and Texas Animal Health Commission will continue their regulatory functions and send the information to the Extension Service for timely distribution to interested parties. Alerts distributed will include confirmed positives of pest or disease, establishment, modification, or removal of a quarantine and compliance agreements. The committee substitutes, clarifies the relevant animals or wildlife, and adds the Texas Animal Health Commission, as they are an agency which oversight of exotic wildlife. I personally can testify to the wanting this type of bill as a business that is involved with landscaping, and we work in multiple counties. If there was one county with a quarantine, we would not be notified. If we were in a different county, we could be having equipment on site in one county, not knowing we needed to wash it, and then spreading it to multiple counties. This would be an opt-in and would allow those that are interested to be able to ensure the health and safety of plants, livestock, and wildlife. And so please let me know if you have any questions on House Bill 4644. If there are none, I reserve my right to close.
Thank you, Representative. Members, it's okay with you, we're going to move to witnesses, and then we'll come back and do some questions from the author, just for efficiency's sake. Real quick, though, please let the record reflect that Representative Harris is now present. Chair now calls Bill Carson. Morning, Mr. Carson. I've got you down here as Bill Carson. You're here on behalf of Native Texas Nursery and yourself, and you are for this bill. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
Please proceed.
Chairman Kane, members of the committee, again, I thank you for taking the time to hear me this morning. Like I said, my name is Bill Carson. I am the owner of Native Texas Nursery, a landscape production company. Been operating here for 35 years in the state of Texas, outside of it, from our farm here in eastern Travis County, and we distribute our product throughout the state of Texas so that we reach every county and virtually every county and every place that might have a quarantine. I've also served as chairman of the board of the Texas Nursery and Landscape Association, so I'm well aware of the broader area of regulations and what goes on with our state. Our industry supports the House Bill 4644 because we have a long chain of supply that goes from the producer like me to re-wholesalers to then on to retailers and contractors, all of which are maybe operated out of several different counties and several different places throughout the state. Knowledge of these quarantines for pests and disease is important because if I as a producer am producing plants and planning to ship them, if I'm not aware of a quarantine or of a compliance agreement, which right now I literally have to seek it out individually, if I'm not aware of those things, I can be in violation and cause other people, people receiving it, to also be in violation. From the other side, where you have someone who has been placed in a quarantine county, they are given notice and they know at that point what they have to do to receive and to send plants from there to another jurisdiction. We have this same thing through the yes.
Well, Mr. Carson, I've got to cut you off on the time, though, but
right.
Could you finish telling me what you're going to say?
Okay. The federal agencies have the same thing with the stakeholder registry, and we feel that it would service not only the industry, but the people of the state of Texas to do this. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Well, they may ask questions. I'm not sure, though. Members, any questions for this witness? All right. Thank you, Mr. Carson. Chair now calls Ryan Skrobchek. Ryan, it's just Ryan, okay?
I was going to compliment you on getting close.
Vowels in your name. So here's how we're going to do this. I've got your name as Ryan.
Scribarcheck.
See, yeah, whatever. And see, Skrobercheck.
Skovarchek?
I'm from Southeast Texas. We're lazier with our words. Okay, Skrobarcheck, you're the director of the Texas Nursery and Landscape Association, and you are for this bill. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members. Just here on behalf of TNLA, in support of the bill, want to thank Representative Timish for offering the bill. We do believe it's important for these timely notifications because of the regulatory impacts of the information that will be communicated. The fact that this is being sent out and mirroring a resource that's available at the federal level, we think it's just good government. So appreciate that.
All right. Members, any questions for this witness? Thank you, Mr. Skrobarcheck. Okay, great. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4644? Please let the record reflect Representative Wilson is now present. Anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4644? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Timish to close on the bill.
Thank you so much for allowing me this. I will say that this is industry driven, and I think this is something that would be important for the state of Texas. Thank you for allowing me to lay this out. I close.
Great. We think it's a great bill as well. Thank you, Representative. The committee substitute is withdrawn, and if there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there an objection? Chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. Chair lays out House Bill 4616 and recognize Representative Assood to explain his bill. Members, there is a committee substitute. The chair offers a committee substitute. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Chairman Kane, Vice Chair. Oh, Doc, you doing all right today? And members of the committee for the opportunity to lay out the committee substitute for House Bill 4616. The Texas Department of Agriculture has authority under statute to subject. Man, you're making it difficult to talk. All right. Subject plant products to a written stop sale order and destroy products if they determine the products violate any agency rule. In some cases, this may be done when plant material is not suspected to be infested or infected, but when it is mislabeled or lacking proper inspection paperwork. In the case of destruction, no compensation is provided to the grower. The bill provides a very simple form of oversight. It formalizes the communication between state policymakers and the Texas Department of Agriculture in cases where they choose to subject plant material to a stop sale or stop sale order or to destroy the material. It's my understanding that the Animal Health Commission already delivers this similar information on animal destruction to this committee. The committee substitute narrows the type of stop sale subject to the notice requirements. We originally had it for plant material and animal products. Substitutes only for animal products. In addition, it has some other clarifications, and it's a committee substitute drafted by Ledge Council, so it's a little bit more wordy. I don't know. They can speak better than me. Happy to answer any questions. If not, I believe there are some witnesses that can probably answer questions better than me and reserve the right to close.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Were you talking bad about Ledge Council just now?
No. I'm saying that they use better words.
What was your ranking in your graduating class?
I don't know if that's relevant.
What was it? What was it?
1.
Thank you. Okay. All right, great. He said 1. Members, any questions for the author? If not, what we're going to do is we've got one witness here, and I'll try and pronounce his name correctly, and then we'll bring you back up.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Chair now calls Ryan Skrobarcheck. Scribblesick.
Yep, you got it. Yep.
Yes, go ahead. Ryan Skrobarcheck.
All right.
On behalf of the Texas Nursery and Landscaping Association, you are for this bill?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Thank you, Chairman Kane and committee members, for the chance to speak in favor of 4616. My name is Ryan Scribarczyk. I'm with TNLA and testifying in favor of the bill. TNLA represents over 1,400 member businesses across the green industry, including wholesale and retail operations, landscape contractors, and growers. Our association supports the transparency and oversight that's provided by House Bill 4616. Our association supports the agency doing its job to mitigate the spread of pest and disease. We also think that the relevant oversight committee, such as this one, should be aware of the actions the agency is taking when they seize or destroy private property. Our understanding is that the committee already receives this information from Animal Health, as the author stated, And so additionally, I will say for our part, TNLA has for years been in favor of the legislature appropriating the necessary resources to TDA for conducting adequate roadside inspection stations. We believe this bill will help increase the legislature's awareness of how vital those resources are to catching infected or infested plant material coming into the state. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the Director of the Texas Nursery and Landscaping Association? Chair recognizes Representative Timish.
Thank you. Have there been instances where products have been destroyed?
Sure. It happens quite frequently as the agency might find them. If they cannot be treated, oftentimes they have to be destroyed.
And so is it done so a grower sends plants, they feel like they're in compliance, they've asked all the right questions, and then are they surprised with the end result?
Representative, I think there's every circumstance under the sun, honestly, in that scenario. Oftentimes you have retailers who might buy out of state. I was just talking with our friends from TDA this morning that a retailer can buy product from out of state not knowing it's prohibited to purchase it from out of state. And in that case, if it doesn't have a tag, or maybe it's infested, or maybe it's just out of compliance, sometimes it has to be destroyed. So I don't think anybody's probably ever happy when their product that they've purchased is destroyed, but I mean, the TDA has a necessary job to do in those regards. We just appreciate the oversight and transparency that this bill would bring.
Okay, thank you.
I think the Chair recognizes Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe you're not the right person to ask this question. Well, we'll start out with this. So you're clearly an expert on the plant products, but this also applies to animal products?
So I believe the committee substitute narrows it down to just plant products.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions for this person?
Thank you, committee members.
None?
Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4538? If not, the Chair recognizes Representative Vasut to close on the bill.
Thank you, members of the committee, for your favorable consideration of House Bill 4616. Good bill, simple bill. America.
Mr. Vasut, is this more or less freedom?
I believe that this provides the necessary information to preserve freedom.
Okay, thank you. We do have questions, though. Chair recognizes Representative Goodwin.
So I'm looking at the committee sub, I believe, unless there's an update, and it looks like it still includes wildlife. Yeah.
This one, it should have 21072 in the bottom left.
Oh. Mine says CS blank, so that's not the correct one.
At
you
the
what, I'll
very
look
bottom, yeah. The committee substitute. I'll just for your edification, for just to clarify this. It only applies to a stop sale order under section 18010, 19011, or 71060, applicable to a plant product. So it does not apply to animal products.
Sorry.
No worries at all.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you bet, you bet. Happy to answer any other questions afterwards if anyone has any.
Members, any other questions for the author?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. The committee substitute is withdrawn, and if there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there an objection? The Chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. All right. Chair lays out House Bill 4069 and recognizes Representative Meyer to explain the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee. As might not come as a shock to anybody here, I've never been in front of this committee in 4 sessions. This is my first time, so pretty excited about being in front of your committee, Mr. Chairman. Member, currently there are a few laws in the state regarding transparency and care and pricing for veterinarians providing emergency treatment. The State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners does not currently have the authority to set rules or handle complaints regarding this. HB 4069 directs the State Board to adopt rules to address this issue. And really what I'm doing here, members, is there's a situation where now it's kind of sprung up throughout the state of Texas where there are emergency rooms for animals. And what is happening is, let's just say your dog gets out, gets hit by the car, they go to the emergency care facility. Unlike with us, where you've got insurance checking what they're doing or other safeguards to what these emergency care rooms are doing for animals, there really isn't. So you can get a situation where your animal is hit by a car, goes to the emergency room, and 2 days later you have $6,000 in costs associated with that. This is to address that issue because the board currently can't do anything about that. And so what this bill does is say, hey, board, set some parameters for treatment and cost before providing said treatment so that the owner will know the costs associated with the care. And that's what this bill is about. It's about transparency and accountability for pet owners in the state of Texas. And with that, I reserve my right to close.
Great, thank you. Members, we have a few witnesses, so if it's okay with you, we'll go to our witnesses and bring the author back up after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. The chair now calls Judy Santerre. Yes. All right. Yeah, we got a few. Yes, ma'am, we'll pass those out. All right, good morning. We've got you as Judy Santerre. You're here on behalf of yourself, and you were for this bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please proceed.
This common sense bill requires that people be notified of costs by a veterinarian before receiving emergency care for their pets. In a recent case from California, a couple paid $15,000 for veterinary care for a puppy with parvo. With the puppy still very sick and faced with even more charges, they researched parvo and found that the survival rate is 20%. They realized their puppy had little chance to live a healthy life, and they made the difficult decision to euthanize. That clinic is corporate owned by the largest holder of veterinary clinics in the U.S., and the experience not uncommon. People who go to a veterinary clinic or ER with a pet emergency are under a lot of stress, forcing them to make difficult decisions under duress, sometimes involving taking on high-cost predatory debt to pay for care to save a beloved pet. Those decisions can involve futile diagnostics and treatments for a pet with a low chance of survival, but a high chance of raking in large veterinary profits. Emergencies with pets happen often, and to list common reasons: seizures from flea and tick products, difficulty breathing, pale mucous membranes, inability to urinate, very common in cats, severe bleeding, vomiting or pain, inability to walk, and eye injuries. A pet with any of those conditions has to see a veterinarian and fast. This bill will allow people to review what the clinic expects those veterinary charges will be so people can make rational and humane decisions on how to proceed, as well as make those decisions earlier. This is already included in the AVMA's ethics policy. It is the attending veterinarian's responsibility to inform the client of the expected results and costs and the related risk of each treatment regimen. Give people who love their companion animals the ability to make informed decisions by giving them the truth. Informed consent protects both veterinary clients and veterinarians alike. Please just pass this bill for the 20 million Texans who love their companion animals. Thank you.
Members, any questions for this witness? Thank you, ma'am. Chair now calls Trent Hightower. Morning, Mr. Hightower. I've got you as Trent Hightower. You're here on behalf of the Texas Veterinary Medical Association. You're to testify on the bill. That'd be neutral, right?
That is correct.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. Yes, I'm here to testify on the bill. First, I want to thank Representative Meyer for working with us on this language. We think it's a good concept. We just think it needs a couple of little improvements. In our experience, most veterinary clinics employ as the best practice of being upfront and transparent with their pricing before treating an animal. Unlike in human medicine, where insurance is more often in play and questions relating to costs and payment are generally resolved after services are rendered, veterinarians have to clearly communicate and agree to payment terms with their clients to ensure that they get paid for their work. However, we understand that communication can sometimes be lacking, especially in an emergency context. This bill generally codifies what we consider to be a best practice for pricing transparency, but we've requested two small modifications to ensure that it accounts for the realities of an emergency situation. First, in some cases, the emergency veterinarian's first priority will be stabilizing a patient that is suffering from an acute injury or illness. Additionally, some period of initial assessment is often required before the veterinarian can develop a treatment plan or provide a cost estimate for implementing that plan. Therefore, we ask that the bill allow the veterinarian to provide the cost estimate either before rendering service or as soon as practicable after they've stabilized the patient. Second, in emergency medicine, the patient's condition and needs can change rapidly. Therefore, we ask that the bill clarify that any description of the veterinarian's proposed treatment plan and the costs associated with that plan shall be based on the patient's current condition and may be subject to change as more information becomes available or the patient's condition changes. With that, we look forward to continuing to discuss this bill with Representative Meyer, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chair recognizes Representative Bernal.
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
So I think you said most vets, this is not an issue. It's probably a bill designed to go after bad actors, right?
Correct.
And we need those, I think the word he used was guardrails. Maybe that's 2 words, I'm not sure. But we're going after bad actors, right? Most of the middle
Exactly.
80%, middle 90% are great, and there's just sort of 5% on either side that need the bill to keep them from overcharging the owners. And so I guess my question is, how does the desire to rein in bad actors work with the first tweak that you want? Because a bad actor is probably going to render services that aren't needed and then say, well, this is the soonest I could do it, or this is the moment where I can tell you about it, but these are the exact people that we're trying to, you know what I mean? How do you square those two things?
I mean, I think that would probably be something that would come down to the board's analysis of what the doctor did in the situation and whether the treatment was appropriate.
But that means that the consumer would have to go through the process of complaining and engaging the board, as opposed to the vet having an affirmative duty to do something up front. I'm just saying that if the point of the bill is to go after bad actors, how do you square that with the tweak you want, which I think creates opportunity for bad actors to act bad?
I think that's something we're definitely open to continuing to discuss. I think the thing you have to kind of weigh against that, though, is, are you posing a danger to an animal? If the veterinarian is having to worry about working up a treatment plan and cost estimate without having the full picture of what's going on with that animal, and they're not stabilizing it, and say it's just been hit by a car and they've got to get it in better shape where they can fully assess it. So I think that's where you just kind of have to weigh it at the board with people with medical expertise, whether what they did was appropriate.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say is I get that. I'm sensitive to it. I know that the real world doesn't work that way, but this becomes essentially medical debt, like the medical debt we'd have for ourselves, and so you could be saddled with that. And I think that at some point people will deserve the opportunity to make a very, very tough choice, or to make very strategic choices, because otherwise they could be left with, I forgot what the dollar amount was $15,000 out of nowhere. And we were talking about a 2-minute conversation, something you can have someone go and tell them about. So
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with that case or the circumstances surrounding it.
No, but I think the point is, and I'm done, Chair, but I think my point is that if the point of the bill is to go after bad actors, recognizing that they're in the minority, we don't want to then create loopholes that allow bad actors to continue to act bad. That's all.
Chair recognizes Representative Timish.
Thank you for this, and having had a daughter that interned, we see this. So again, just following up, and I appreciate those questions. Mine would also be the concerns, because I think when you come in and, obviously very emotional, because this is your pet, part of your family, I think that, just how do you clarify, like, stabilizing, but at the same time, there's a 10-20% chance of survival, and yet you may walk out with $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 bills. We've been in a situation where one was, it was a 40% chance of working, and it was going to be a $6,000 bill at the end of it. Thankfully, we were able to ask questions, but not everybody does. Where is the time frame? There has to be some opportunity for, I think, with anything to say, we generally think it's going to be, you could at least say, we think it's going to be a spread of pricing, so somebody can make an informed decision, so you don't walk away with a significant medical debt?
Yeah, I think we can work something like that out. I think we can propose some language on that.
Because I would feel like there would be, and obviously I'm not a doctor, but just that, with most services, there's a range of, we generally feel like, I really feel like I want to be careful, because I really appreciate this bill, just somebody not walking away and not understanding what they're, that now they've lost a pet and now they owe thousands of dollars.
Yeah, we don't want that either. We can work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Hightower. This is a very difficult situation, always, and particularly when there's trauma involved. So trying to establish the organ systems that are involved and monitor the status of the patient, and at the same time, being able to respond if things deteriorate. I think the biggest issue is communication. I mean, there has to be a definite effort to try and communicate as that system improves or deteriorates. And so I think you have some, these two suggestions here are helpful, and it may be that the veterinarian should attempt to have a range, just say, okay, we're looking about from here to here, but as I say, that can deteriorate pretty rapidly. And with technology nowadays that's available, that can increase the cost,
Right.
trying to make sure that you're giving the best standards of care to that animal. So it is a difficult situation, and but I think communication is the key most of the time.
We would agree.
Chair recognizes Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Trent, for being here. I appreciate your perspective on this. If we're talking about establishing a form of guardrail or protecting our consumers, would you be open to the possibility of maybe limiting what could be charged without a consultation? So have some sort of, all right, I have to triage a patient to make sure they don't die before we can even have the conversation. But I think limiting the financial liability to the owner, to me, seems like a potentially workable solution. What do you think about that?
Potentially, yeah, and I think that's possibly the kind of thing that when the board is developing rules for implementing this, that's the kind of thing that they could put in the rule, and we could direct the board to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Members, any other questions for this witness? All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Hightower. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4069? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Meyer to close on his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. I appreciate your thoughtful questions. I believe you all fully understand the issue that we're trying to address here with owners and consumers. To your point, Representative Rosenthal, happy to work with the vets. Again, we received the tweaks at 4 p.m. yesterday, so it's going to take us a little time to kind of take a look at them. But Representative Bernal and Representative Themisch, I believe you guys nailed it. That kind of goes against the purpose of this bill, which is to stop bad actors. And so, again, I appreciate your time and your consideration of this bill, and I close.
Members, I'll remind you, we've got an hour and 20 minutes until we got to go to the floor. Anybody want to ask any questions, Representative Meyer? Hearing none, you're good.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Representative Meyer. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there an objection? Chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 2796 and recognizes Representative Meza to explain the bill. Members, by the way, there's a committee substitute on this bill, so the chair offers up the committee substitute. 279, one moment. We got them reversed. All right. We're just going to back up, members, do it one more time. The chair lays out House Bill 2769 by Representative Meza. Chair recognizes Representative Meza to explain the bill. Members, there's a committee substitute. Chair offers that committee substitute.
Thank you, Chairman Kane, members of the committee. Whoops, where'd they go? This is a bill that I had offered back in 2019, and so I'm glad to offer it again. So thank you for hearing this bill. I didn't really realize until later in adulthood how important bees were. They were just something you had to worry about if they were buzzing around you. And then I learned how important bees are. They play a crucial role in pollinating crops, maintaining biodiversity in Texas. They contribute to the growth of the state's honeybee industry and are essential for the production of food crops. Without bees, many of these crops would not be able to grow, leading to a decrease in the state's agricultural productivity. And many Texans have taken up beekeeping as a hobby or profession, contributing to the growth of the state's honeybee industry and boosting our agricultural industry. In Texas, Beekeepers are required to obtain a permit to move their bees from one county to another. As you might imagine, bees are totally capable of moving themselves from one county to another. But if we help them move from one county to another, we have to get a permit. This was particularly interesting back when I represented both Irving and Grand Prairie, because most of Grand Prairie is in Dallas County. A small part of it's in Tarrant County that Chairman Turner represents. So if you transported bees from East Grand Prairie to West Grand Prairie, you'd have to get a permit. Frisco's in more than one county. If you transplanted from one side of Frisco to the other side of Frisco, you'd have to get a permit. And you may have examples in your districts of towns that are in more than one county. So it seems kind of crazy that you can just go across town and you have to get a permit because you're going from one county to another. So this process can be cumbersome, it's time-consuming, hinders the ability of beekeepers to manage their hives effectively. Additionally, the fees and paperwork involved in the permit process can be frustrating for beekeepers, particularly for small-scale beekeepers who may not have the resources or knowledge to navigate the process. So this bill aims to remove the permit requirement for transporting bees between counties in Texas. By removing this unnecessary barrier, beekeepers can transport their hives more easily and efficiently, and promoting the growth of the honeybee industry and helping to address the declining bee population in Texas. This bill will reduce the bureaucratic hurdles for beekeepers, freeing up resources for the Texas Department of Agriculture to focus on other areas. Repealing the permit requirement would eliminate unnecessary bureaucratic hurdles for beekeepers, freeing up resources for the Texas Department of Agriculture, also promote beekeeping, encourage more people to take up this as a hobby or profession. This in turn will contribute to the growth of the honeybee industry in Texas, has significant economic benefits for the state. This is a common sense solution that will help to promote the growth of the honeybee industry, and I urge the committee to support this bill, help to protect this vital part of Texas' agriculture economy and ecosystem.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Members, if it's all right with you, we're going to go on to some witnesses. Sadly, Representative, I think there's some people from Big B here that, aren't really happy with your bill.
Oh.
It's all right, Big Honey. But
There's
look,
some buzz.
I think it's a great bill. These animals can fly. Why are we getting a permit for
All right.
transporting to other
Well, I
countries? Great bill.
reserve my right to
Ma'am,
close.
bring it
Thank you,
back up.
Chairman.
Chair now calls Chris Barnes. Morning, sir. I got you as Chris Barnes. You're here on behalf of the Texas Association of Professional Bee Removers and yourself, and you were here to testify for this bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Please proceed.
This should be a fairly short. I'm speaking on behalf of the Texas Association of Professional Bee Removers. We unanimously agreed as a board of directors to support this bill, mostly because we believe this bill reflects near unanimous consent amongst the beekeeper community, especially hobbyist beekeepers, regarding the irrelevance of the permit to bee health, which I believe was the original intent of the license, restricting bees from moving county to county.
No, licenses are
permit.
taxes and controlling people's
Right. I'm sorry,
It has
permit.
nothing to do with safety.
We believe that the interstate permit is a clear example of an antiquated portion of the agricultural code, a relic of threats which are no longer prevalent in such a manner as to justify continued existence. And last, we believe the removal of this permit will allow both beekeepers and the Texas Apiary Inspection Service staff to dedicate time currently devoted to the implementation of this permit to more important and relevant issues.
Great, great. Members, any questions for this one? All right, hey, thank you. Yeah, we'll take that and pass it around. Thanks so much. All right, chair now calls Dorothy Stillman.
Hello.
Howdy, ma'am. I've got you here as Dorothy Stillman. You're here on behalf of the Texas Beekeepers Association and yourself, and you're here to testify against this bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kane and members of the Agriculture and Livestock Committee, for letting me speak today. I am Dorothy Doty Stillman. I'm here on behalf of myself and the Texas Beekeepers Association. We are opposed to HB 2769. While we do support the repeal of this permit, we oppose this bill because it doesn't address issues that will arise from the repeal that will be addressed in House Bill 4538. We believe House Bill 4538 is a better way to provide for the repeal of this permit. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I just, to clarify that we're not here testifying on House Bill 4538,
Right.
though, right?
We are not. We are opposing 2769.
All right. Thank you. Members, any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Stillman, do we still have a problem, or do you see a problem with Africanized bees? Or has that pretty much been, I think that was instrumental in getting some of these permits?
Exactly, yes. I think, yes, there are still Africanized bees. Most, I don't know any specific number, but a lot of the bees in Texas now have that gene associated with them. We've got a bunch of mutts. It's really easy to get hot bees, and it's really easy to cure hot bees. I don't think that this permit is needed for that anymore.
Okay. Well,
Great. I really, I'm not trying to be insulting. I feel like you keep testifying for this bill. You've told us we don't need this permit.
We don't need this
Okay,
permit, but
you're
there's,
against- I got it. Yes, ma'am. Members, any other questions for this witness? All right, and we'll look at the other bill as well. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
no, we have a better bill.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chair now calls Ashley Ralph.
Chairman, representatives.
Real quick, I just got you this,
oh.
that way we just keep it clean. And so I've got you as Ashley Ralph. You're here on behalf of the Texas Beekeepers Association, Prime Bees Farm, and yourself. You are a master beekeeper. We're going to clear some stuff up, though. I've got you registered that you're on behalf of the master beekeepers. That's what you are.
Yeah, I wasn't going to put
Right.
that, but I think Dodie forgot to do that on hers, and I
Yeah.
can technically speak
I
to
got
that.
it. So we're going to clear a few things up just real quick.
Sure.
Just to confirm that she's testifying on behalf of TST.
So you're on behalf of the Texas Beekeepers Association and Prime Bees.
Correct.
And yourself.
And myself.
So we're going to clear that up real quick. Just going to remove the master beekeeper part. Great. Last time, Ashley Ralph, Texas Beekeepers Association, Pride Bees Farm, and yourself, and you're against this bill. Is that correct?
Yes,
Please.
and I will clarify, it will be a little bit similar. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I understand that it appears as though there's no real objection. However, it's a somewhat nuanced and complicated reason to be objecting, and it's primarily due to the fact that there is a current public service that's provided by the Texas Apiary Inspection Service that utilizes those permits to provide lists to AgriLife Extension, communities, and municipalities, whoever really needs it. It's public information. And so that's the part that's missing from that previous statement. So I am a past president of the Texas Beekeepers Association, a first-generation farmer, all of that. I'll probably go into that a little more later, but I do recognize that the intent of this bill is to clean it up and to recognize, as Chris Barnes said, an antiquated need to remove this permit. But I do feel like there's a better way to do it, and there are some things that need to be addressed when removing the permit, including being able to still provide a service to the community about who can remove bees. It's a very, anyway, if you have questions.
Yeah, I do have a quick
Okay.
one. So you were mentioning your problem with this bill has to do with data collection?
Yeah, so my problem with the bill is that currently this list, yes, is used to provide a service to the public about beekeepers that are willing to remove bees. And as Mesa has, Representative Mesa has stated, bees are a valuable part of the environment, and most people would like to have them removed responsibly.
Right.
And so currently there is a list that's maintained using this permit to basically provide that list of
I'm just
people.
curious. So it's not about safety or Africanized bees.
Absolutely
bees
not.
flying. We shouldn't have to have a permit to transport them between counties.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, I feel like we're all testifying for this bill, but it says you're against. I'm sorry, one moment. The chair recognizes Representative Bernal.
I think I get it. One of the ancillary benefits of the permits is that it creates a list.
Correct.
That acts like a directory.
Correct.
Right, and that directory allows people to find responsible, rule-following, law-abiding
beekeepers.
And that if we eliminate, if we eliminate the bee passport, then
that list potentially could disappear without a option. Yeah.
What I would suggest is, I understand the point. It's a sort of small niche community that probably doesn't have the sort of marketing firepower that another one does. I would talk to the bill author to figure out a way to figure that part out, because I think that the point she's making makes a lot of sense. The point you're making also makes a lot of sense.
Right.
There's probably a way with a few commas and semicolons to fix some of that.
Yeah, okay.
Right on. I'm thinking, a voluntary free registration.
I love that idea.
Because the people that maybe aren't good at it, they don't want to register, okay? So make them.
Yeah, but there's some, anyway, there are some.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you. Members, any other questions of this witness? Hearing none. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2769? If not, the chair recognizes Representative. There is one.
I'd like to address the question that,
Excellent. Well, we'd have to register you and all those things. You really need it? You want us to do that?
well, I've spoken before.
My apologies. One moment. One moment, sir.
Chris Barnes with Texas Association.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Just call him back up.
Back up, members. All right. Chair calls Chris Barnes back up. Sir, you had previously testified. Is that, Mr. Barnes, you previously testified, just in case you're Chris Barnes, and you're on behalf of the Texas Association of Professional Bee Removers and yourself. And
Correct.
You testified for this bill, is that right?
One of the purposes of our organization is to provide a list of people that can do bee removal. We specifically, are in favor of this bill because one of the benefits is that it removes that list that's maintained. Our position is that list that's maintained, there's no vetting or verification of the people on that list that they actually know what they're doing. It's basically anybody can go out and hang a shingle saying that they're willing to go out and collect bees, and there's no requirements about what they do with them afterwards. So this is
I want to tell you, Mr. Barnes, it doesn't sound like too bad of an idea by me, by the way. It sounds like a free market thing. But Chair recognizes Representative Bernal.
Well, I guess my question is, I don't know what the requirements are. I don't know anything about the industry at all, right? But
I'll give you an example.
But at a minimum, these are people who are willing to identify themselves to the state, seek a permit. I'm assuming the permit might have a cost, and then allow their information to be collected by the state and then republished. That doesn't sound to me like people who are going to try to evade or skirt or work around. If you're saying the state would never know if I took a box of bees from Bexar County to Harris County. But if I'm willing to tell the state that I'm going to, it sounds overly responsible to me. But again, I don't know the industry. You can tell me the dirty secrets of beekeeping.
I'll give you one example, and then it'll be at the end of what I need to say here. There are people who sign up to do bee removal who are really just doing pest control. They go in and kill the bees, or they go in and collect the bees and just let them go, despite the idea that the customer or the public has that when you go in and remove bees, you're removing them, hiving them so that they're a managed colony of bees. Those people do exist, and sadly say there's a lot of them.
That's the vetting you're talking about.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions for the witness? Thank you, sir. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2769? Not, the chair recognizes Representative Mays at a close on her bill.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. We did have visitors to the office. I didn't get to meet with them personally, but the staff did, saying that this permitting was valuable to them because it created a referral list. And so they wanted to keep the permitting so that they could have a referral list. I don't think that's a good reason for keeping the permitting.
Yeah, but they also might have probably tell you it's possible. Some organizations like to have these lists so they can try and get more members to their organization as well.
Yes.
But we understand.
But anyway, so whether it's membership recruitment or referrals, to me, that's not a good reason to require a permit for transferring bees. There's other ways to do recruiting membership and getting referrals than requiring people to have a permit to transport bees across county lines. So while I understand their interest in having referrals, I don't think that's a reason to not support this bill.
Yeah, great. My only closing question for you, Representative, is this bill create more freedom or less freedom?
Freedom for bees?
Is there more freedom or less?
More
Are we
freedom.
growing government, shrinking it? Which one is it?
Shrinking government.
Great, excellent. Members, any questions?
Cutting through bureaucracy and unnecessary red tape for just transporting a bee from one side of town to the other.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the author? Hearing none.
Do I have your votes?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. The committee substitute is withdrawn. If there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending.
Amen. I close. Thank you.
Chair lays out House Bill 2692 and recognizes Representative Campos to explain her bill.
Good morning, Chairman Kane and Vice Chair Anderson and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 2692 relating to activities exempt from structural pest control regulation. HB 2692 pertains to specific dispersal techniques for nuisance birds, which would be outlined in the Occupational Code under Pest Control Regulation in Chapter 1951. Nuisance birds like cackles are aggressive birds which roost in large flocks, damage property, spread pathogens, and are extremely noisy. These birds negatively affect urban tourism and create a serious public health concern. Texas already has strict regulation on the methods by which pest control services may be provided, but there are serious limitations due to federal protections, specifically the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918, which protects all U.S. native birds from being killed, captured, or harmed, which are all expressly used in the regulated pest control services. HB 2692 seeks to provide an option for property owners, businesses, and other organizations to disperse nuisance birds in a way that does not interfere with the state-regulated pest control nor the federal protections in place. There are three specific techniques stated in the language of this bill. One, the use of laser lights, noise-emitting devices, and recorded sounds operating at a volume that complies with any applicable municipal or county noise ordinance. For example, these non-invasive tactics contracted by the San Antonio River Authority redirect large nuisance bird populations from the River Authority sidewalks, which has helped migrate the amount of avian-derived E. coli from entering the San Antonio River. I am open for questions and respectfully reserve the right to close. I want to express that I am not about killing birds because I'm an animal lover, but sometimes they can be unhealthy and a little bit of a nuisance. So I reserve the right to close. Again, any questions?
Members, any questions? Hearing none, we'll proceed to testimony. The chair calls Leo Pacheco, former Representative Leo Pacheco.
Thank you, committee. It's my pleasure. It's the first time I've been back. Yes.
You showed you're registered as Leo Pacheco, and you're here on behalf of yourself, and you're testifying for the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Proceed.
Yes. Thank you, committee. It's my pleasure. I haven't been back to the Capitol since the last session, and it's my pleasure to be here. This bill was filed by me last session, 2772, but just ran out of time, as we all know. gets out late, received it late, thought it was a good idea, and put it through. As Representative Campos said, this bill is not about killing birds. It's actually the opposite, using laser lights. It's the same laser people use to play around with cats and stuff, but the birds don't like it. The other thing is using clappers, noisemakers. And the major hotels, downtown San Antonio, Riverwalk, are in favor of this bill so that the company downtown that does the cleanup can continue to do their job without having to go through a costly permit process. This is about less government and more freedom. And this is a problem that happens in Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, all over. There's lights. These are migratory birds. Texas happens to be right in their path. I live on the south side of San Antonio. There's a Walgreens on Military Drive and South Flores. People won't even park there at night when the grackles are there because of it looks like somebody's painting the parking lot white. And if you put your car there, it'll turn white. And so people are not allowed, even if on their own in the neighborhood, if they want to go and use a laser light to scare them away or use noisemakers or clappers to scare them away without having to go through a pest control company that has a permit. And we just think this is just a common sense bill to be able to allow the public to be able to scare birds without harming them. Okay.
Members, any questions? Mr. Pacheco? Yes.
So it's currently allowed, but you have to get a permit to do it?
Yes, through the pest control. And it's very costly.
And so who would do it going forward if this bill were to pass? Just the city would?
Well, right now, the company that has the contract downtown is called Block by Block. They work for Centro San Antonio, and so they're contracted, but they have to go through a process. And so they'll get some of the workers to go through the pest control apprenticeship program. Well, these workers will get their apprenticeship program, and as soon as they get that license, guess what? They lose the employee to go work at a higher industry. And so the cost of having to retrain and send it, it's just a very costly way of doing business right now. And we're just trying to simplify it.
All right, thank you.
Members, yes, Mr. Mish.
This is an issue in my district as well with egrets and herons that and homeowners will have them nest next to, kids walking to school or mailboxes. And so if somebody required to have the pest control license, then there's continuing education that has to go every year. So even if a homeowner wanted to go to that step currently, there would still be an ongoing cost, correct?
That is correct.
And so this would just allow people in their own homes and others to be able to safely keep birds without putting out poison. They would just be able to keep them from nesting, which then creates a problem for kids that are trying to get to school, things like that, correct?
That is correct. This is in no way we are trapping, euthanizing, killing, or anything shocking. None of that is happening. That's not what this bill is for.
Just safely discourage them
Right.
from nesting.
Kind of like when you shoo a cat from your front yard, you shouldn't have to have a permit for that.
Perfect, thank you.
Members, any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
At this time, the chair calls Mr. John Kosh.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Kosh, and we show you as representing, as Mr. John Kosh, representing the company Block by Block, and yourself, is that correct?
That is correct.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairman.
And you're
Committee.
for the bill, right?
I am for the bill, 2692. Thank you very much for having us and allowing us to speak to you today. I represent Block by Block. My company does do this bird abatement currently in San Antonio, and we're working to explore other opportunities. As the bill is structured, as the permit is currently structured, we do have to become pest control exterminator licensed personnel, and we have. We have in San Antonio. We're in compliance with all of the necessary requirements. The issue as we see it is we go through this extensive program to become licensed, and we don't use any of the required data that we collect. We're not killing birds. We're not shocking birds. We're not poisoning anybody. Everything that we do is non-lethal. There's no repercussion to the environment, to the waterways, the soil. There's no ill effects at all. As a matter of fact, a person, any of us, could walk into HEB right now and buy any number of poisons, Raid, any number of poisons to abate pests in our own homes. We don't use any of that. Our devices are not, there's no lethal or harmful effects. When we were here last time, we spoke 2 years ago, there was opposition that this would be a slippery slope to deregulation. We're not in favor of deregulation of the pest control industry. We believe that anybody that uses a material that is harmful to our environment, to animals, to the public, should be regulated. But again, we don't fall under that category. We're providing only a laser light and a clapper. So we wish to support this bill so that we're freely able to deter these pests without harm. Also, if I may, we did receive a inspection by the Texas Agriculture Department last year, or in 2021. There were 67 questions on the inspection.
Can you do that quickly, Mr. Kosh?
Yes, I will. There are 67 questions on that inspection. Only 11 pertain to us. We were in compliance with all 11. But this is an unnecessary resource for the Agriculture Department as well to regulate us.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Kosh. Yeah. Members, any questions for this witness? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, the chair calls Mr. Mike Pacheco. Welcome, Mr. Pacheco, and I show you as being Mr. Mike Pacheco, representing Central San Antonio and block by block, and yourself, and you're for the bill.
Correct.
Thank you, please.
Mr. Chairman, House Committee members. First, I'd like to read a letter from our CEO, Matt Brown, from Central San Antonio. And Central is proud to implement a non-harmful bird abatement technique and strategies. The method we use should not fall under the umbrella of commercial devices, as we simply use party clappers to make noise and laser pointers. Our method does not fall under any of the categories stated in the House Bill number 2692. 1, device to kill, harm, trap, or collect live nuisance birds. That's not what we do. By passing this bill, it will allow us to continue to use our non-harmful method. We are having great success herding the birds out of downtown area, and by doing so, creating a cleaner, more beautiful space for our guests and local business owners. Our bird abatement program successes include a drop in the E. coli in the San Antonio River and a lot cleaner walking path for our guests with no disruption in the migratory patterns. Respectfully, Matt Brown, CEO of Central San Antonio. Now, I'm the general manager of Central San Antonio, and I've been there for 14 years. And my 14 years, I've seen a mess. Rep, you have seen it as well. You represent downtown. And the way we pressure wash is at night, and we recapture the water after we pressure wash to reduce any type of flow going into our storm drains. And it was that massive back then. The use of the simple lasers and the clappers that we have, we're using today is, we start at 5:30 in the morning and we're done by 6:30 in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we're there at 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. We have to do it daily. We don't do it daily. They come back to their roosting sites and they leave their mess. I'd just like to say that, I just want to show you a picture before I close this. It is the clappers that we use, and the laser pointer that we use is very simple. And then
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Pacheco.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. Members, any questions?
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you. At this time, the chair calls Mr. Roy Herrera. Welcome, Mr. Herrera. We show you as being Mr. Roy Herrera with representing Front Runner Pest Control Incorporated and Texas Pest Control Association and yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're against the bill?
Yes, sir.
Proceed, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Roy Herrera. I have a pest control company, and I've been in the industry for over 25 years in San Antonio, and we service the surrounding areas. We service primarily commercial clients. I am apologetic that I need to be against the bill, but I would like to share some technical information for your consideration. Normally for bird work, we need to take in consideration the site evaluation and target pests. You know, are these pests migratory, non-migratory, protected species, non-protected species? So knowledge of the species is very important with prescribing control and treatment methods. Depending on the bird species, issues and location, and a variety of repellent, gels, paste, caulking, liquid spray applications, noise, lasers, and poppers might work. Additional site evaluation needs to be considered because application methods may interrupt the day-to-day operations and traffic flow of businesses in neighborhoods. Are night evening applications going to cause an issue with noise, deprive sleep from neighbors? We must evaluate property for potential issues of drift, runoff, odor, and also when using a spray application to roosting areas, structures, trees, shrubs, balconies, patios, railings, supports, etc. Proper posting and notification must be done. Does the application method warrant no notification of neighbors, neighboring businesses, and neighborhoods? We also must take into consideration the proper attire and visibility of personnel, vehicles during control application methods at all times, especially when using noisemakers, lasers, especially at night. For safety reasons, we should have all these logos and vehicles displayed. The San Antonio River is a complex, more than most sites. It has an endless supply of food, water, and habitat.
Yes, if you can conclude your testimony.
Yes, sir. Due to all these considerations, potential issues when performing this type of work and any other aspect of pest management, it is important to hire a background check, trained, licensed, and insured pest management professional. Again, I thank you for your time, and if you don't have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Yes, Ms. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Roy, for being here. You know, again, in my district, we have a problem with egrets and herons, and, you know, I just really struggle because, you know, in my business, we do have, you know, pest control license, and I understand what goes in. I just don't see where we would need to have people to have a pest control license when we're using lights. So my question is, like, when you have, so you're wanting somebody to hire a company when they're, to keep them from roosting on their mailboxes, to keep them, you know, on their streets so kids can get to school. And so I'm kind of struggling with that. And then when you're depriving people of sleep, what about when the birds are nesting and mating? To me, that's way worse. Have you heard the noise that's made?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We do bird work in San Antonio surrounding areas. As an individual homeowner, I don't understand or have seen that there's a permit required to put squawkers, noisemakers, or hang CDs to deter, you know, the cliff swallows and what have you that are in and around our porches and the grackles and what have you. But on the commercial aspect of it, when you're applying materials, whether it be a noisemaker or something, and you're out in the public, safety is a consideration and should always be a consideration on what we're doing out in the field to protect the health and welfare of the people in Texas.
So I appreciate it. I thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Herrera.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, the chair calls Mr. Dale Burnett.
Morning.
Welcome, Mr. Burnett, and we show you as being Mr. Dale Burnett, representing Texas Pest Control Association, and yourself.
That's correct.
Okay. And you're against the bill?
Yes, I am, and I would rather not be against the bill, but I'll try to outline why I am. I congratulate Block by Block Company for their success. I think that's wonderful. But to clarify, I was a regulator for 28 years, state of Texas, majority of the time with TDA. Been in had my own company for many years. I've been on the private side for 17 years. Former president of Texas Pest Control Association. You do not need a permit from the TDA if you're an individual. You do not need a permit from TDA if you're a company that wants to do it yourself. You can do that. We have freedom in Texas to do that. Believe me, there's a lot of people do it, a lot of people polluting. These people are not polluting. They're not getting stuff in the water. That's good. There's a lot of other things to consider. I just got a notice from Parks and Wildlife and Extension Service about be careful about barn swallows. I operate 8,000-acre ranch in South Texas. I get barn swallows all the time. I don't like them. And there's certain things I can do until a certain time. And then I can't do anything because I can't disturb them, no matter what. Not with water, not with lasers. I can't do anything. So pest ID is an issue, and the training involved has to be done, whether you're licensed or not. In Texas, an apprentice with that company or my company can start work immediately. Immediately. Pay $125 to help fund what they do, to ask those 11 questions. By the way, I get asked 50 out of 67 questions. To fund them to ask those 11 questions, $125 for that apprentice. They can start work the next day, as long as they are with someone who is licensed, who has tested. They can take 40 hours on the job and be a productive worker during that time. Then there's only 28 hours of classroom. I did the math on that last night, and out of a total work year, that'd be 3%. You have to have that much to be a dishwasher. This is very low, but yet it's important for barn swallows that keep going through all the issues here. If you took out the 40 hours for on the job, it's 1% of a year. If they pass a test, it goes down to 8 hours per year, and that's less than 0.5%. So with that, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you putting up with my enthusiasm, and I'll close.
Thank you. Members? Yes, Representative Wilson?
Maybe not. Do we have a resource on this from TDA? No one from TDA is registered. What's that? No one from TDA is registered. Do you want to
Sir, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand. So Parks and Wildlife basically says, because of certain migration periods or whatever, you can't upset the apple cart and mess with them.
On certain birds, including, I just mentioned one of many.
Okay, and that would be for somebody who's permitted or licensed?
That's
or
all of
an
us.
individual?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's for everybody. That's
For
me.
everybody?
That's for me and you.
Okay, and you're saying, and if I'm understanding this correctly, is if you get permitted or get a permit, then you get an education on what you can or cannot do. When you can.
That would be the goal. I would say some of the classroom training is probably not as extensive as it should be. Probably doesn't cover enough on birds, but we could say that about anything. But any company, such as Block by Block, during their 40 hours on the job, they can get as specific as they want to. That's in place. 68 hours a year. I've trained many. I've regulated many. I've also seen some other things, but they're not quite as on point as what I've just said. I don't want to, I can't go more than this because I ain't got time.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any further questions? This time,
I do.
oh, excuse me.
I just wanted to
Representative Goodwin.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly ask you, are barn swallows nuisance birds?
I think every bird can be a nuisance, but I believe barn swallows are not in the same category as grackles and pigeons. Grackles and pigeons, you can kill them. You can kill them. But certain sparrows you can. Certain barn swallows you can, egrets, not so. So every bird has a designation under Parks and Wildlife and under U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Some of, but I hope that answers your question.
Well,
Does it?
So I guess, are barn swallows considered per U.S. Parks and Wildlife a nuisance bird?
I do not know under U.S. Parks, under U.S. Fish and Wildlife, I do not know.
But that's what I meant, Fish and Wildlife. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
At this time, the chair calls Mr. Philip Wright. Yes, Mr. Philip Wright, thank you. We want to make a correction here. We show you, yes, that you're testifying on part of the Texas Department of Agriculture on the bill.
Yes, sir, as a resource witness.
Thank you. Proceed.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Philip Wright, here as a resource witness with the Texas Department of Agriculture to answer any questions that you may have.
Members, it's your chance.
All right, great. Thank you. I know you can't speak with Parks and Wildlife, as the other gentleman referred to.
Yes, sir.
So when they come and pull a permit, what exactly does the permit allow them to do, and what education do they receive to facilitate that permit?
Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify, it is not a permit. It is a license. It's
okay.
an occupational license.
Okay.
So there's not a permitting process in place for each time that they go out and actually do this. It's a license. So when they come in, there's certain educational requirements, and they have to start as an apprentice. And they go through a year as an apprentice working under a certified applicator. And they have to work in direct contact with that certified applicator.
Is this a license bill or a permitting bill? Yeah, okay. Okay. All righty. License or permitting?
Let's see.
Just shake your head yes or no. Is it licensing?
We recognize Representative Campos.
Okay. I'm sure you can, but go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Yes, it's a license.
It's a license. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, sir. So, sir, at the end of the day, when you look at this, and I'm going to bring in some other statistics here, that, what we don't want to disrupt is terms of migrant birds, all those other sorts of things, nuisance or not. But the bottom line is members, I will tell you, since research, since World War II, and in particularly in the last 14 years, the mass of birds has declined by 3 billion birds. And so I see where licensing is very, very important, especially with it comes in education and so forth like that. In your mind, does that put, if we don't licensure in this particular area, does that create a risk where we may disrupt or further disrupt or bring down the number of birds?
It could potentially. You're asking for my opinion, which as a resource witness, I hesitate to sometimes give my opinion.
I know the standard agent. I got it. Thank you.
But yes.
Deliver me from that. Yeah.
Yes, sir, it potentially could. I mean,
Okay.
there's a million different scenarios out there. The other risk to it is you could have people working commercially that haven't been through the background checks that are required with this license as well.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
that.
Mr. Chairman.
See, is there anybody else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2692? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Campos to close on HB 2692.
Again, thank you, committee members. HB 2692 will allow businesses and organizations to handle their business on non-invasive techniques to disperse of nuisance birds for their properties, and I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you, and I close.
Thank you. Representatives, any questions?
Questions?
If there's no objection, the chair hears none, and the bill is left pending.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Chair lays out House Bill 4538 and recognizes Representative Casal to explain the bill. Real quick, by the way, members, there's a committee substitute. The chair offers up the committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 4538 relating to the regulation of beekeeping. Texas is an important beekeeping state and is in fact one of the largest migratory beekeeping states in the United States. From an agricultural standpoint, honeybees are a vital part of agricultural industry, and they provide billions of dollars in added value to crops nationwide. In Texas, the Texas Apiary Inspection Service, TAIS, is the sole agency responsible for regulating the apiary industry in the state. Established in 1910, the TAIS provides an important and necessary function in protecting the health and well-being of the Texas beekeeping industry. In order to ensure the health and safety of the apiary industry, TAIS routinely inspects commercial operations for pest and disease and permits the movement of hives. Without proper inspection and oversight by the agency, the potential for disease could quickly spread across the state and the nation, causing significant negative impact on apiary industry and thus the agriculture industry as a whole. 4538 seeks to modernize and streamline many much-needed changes to Chapter 131 of the Agricultural Code, something that hasn't been done since 1985. And the apiary industry has, in fact, seen many changes over the course of the last 38 years. 4538 seeks to combine the import and export permits into one annual permit rather than multiple permits a beekeeper must currently obtain for every shipment of colonies into or out of the state, and it also repeals the unnecessary intrastate permit. The bill also replaces apiary registration with a voluntary annual beekeeper registration that would allow important public services like the bee remover list to continue and will set up an infrastructure that will provide to be a beneficial in the future. Nothing 4538 increases or decreases the regulatory powers that currently exist at TAIS, and nothing in the bill places an undue burden on small-scale or commercial beekeepers. It is our intent with the bill to help beekeepers and TAIS keep the Texas beekeeping industry vital and strong. The committee substitute makes technical corrections that were agreed upon by industry experts, the Apiary Institute of Texas A&M, and private beekeepers who all offered insight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I believe we have representatives from the Texas Beekeeper Association to answer any other questions, and I would like the opportunity to close.
That's excellent. Members, we're going to go to the witnesses first, if that's all right. We'll do questions for the author afterwards. The chair now calls Ashley Ralph. Ms. Ralph, is it okay, just remember from last time, if we remove the word master beekeeper?
Yep, totally fine.
Okay. And so, once we do that, we're going to have you as Ashley Ralph. You're here on behalf of the Texas Beekeepers Association, Prime Bees Farm, and yourself.
Yep.
And you're for this bill, is that correct?
That is correct.
Please proceed.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for taking the time today. We are a relatively niche group of citizens, and a couple things I've learned in coming to the Capitol for the last few years is that bees are complicated, and so sometimes we have to answer lots of questions, and you guys have a really big job. So I am the past president of the Texas Beekeepers Association. I am a first-generation commercial beekeeper. We grew from one little colony to like 2,000. So just in the last 6 years. My husband and I have employees that we manage for both crop pollination, professional bee removals, honey production, raising and selling honeybees, queens, things like that. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and outline the changes that I see in this bill and illustrate how this bill cleans up some very unnecessary and long overdue updates for the industry. So the first is that it's going to clean up language to both modernize and clarify. We have heard zero objections to those changes at all from anybody that we've spoken to. Simplifying the import and export permit is in a way that has very little impact financially on both the Texas Apiary Inspection Service and beekeepers, while also making it substantially easier for commercial beekeepers like myself to move bees across state lines for pollination and honey production. It also removes and repeals the interstate permit, as mentioned, and which is outdated and unnecessary, but it also allows for the voluntary beekeeper registration that will allow beekeepers to comply with occupational codes. In the event that a beekeeper is forced to register, it's usually because they're trying to comply with an occupational code. So they're making money doing that and paying $35, $25, whatever that fee is, a nominal fee, in order to have the ability to do that under state law. Or in some cases where we've seen forced registration has also been when counties require it for homeowners who are saving money on taxes using 1D1 ag valuation. Other than that, it is completely voluntary and you do not have to register. And quite frankly, the Texas Apiary Inspection Service is forcing zero registrations.
That's excellent. I do have to go to questions, but see, I like your voluntary registration part.
That's why when you said that, I was like, oh, what a great idea.
Add to it. No, y'all should have just been on that bill. Like you.
I know. I'm new to this.
One you love, but look.
I don't know what I'm
gotta
doing. You
stay on
guys are
this,
pros.
though. Yeah, so we're gonna stick to this though, but maybe we can all talk about it later. Yes, it makes sense.
I'll take a legislative class next time before I come in here.
This is it. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Any questions for the witness?
I do have a few more things.
We will maybe get those
Okay.
out in the answers to this, though, ma'am. I've got to keep us to our timeline.
I'm
The chair
trying.
recognizes. I understand. Chair recognizes. Go ahead. You recognize. Sorry, Ms. Goodman.
Thank you. I know that there have been some issues with bees going to California to pollinate the almond orchards there and spreading some sort of a mite, I think it is.
Oh, yeah, the mites exist in all colonies in the U.S.
So I'm just curious, would the changes to this have any impact on the potential spread of other diseases, or like by changing all of this, are we going to still be protecting our bee colonies?
Yes.
Kind of bottom line for me.
Yeah, so the Texas Apiary Inspection Service still has the right to monitor and enforce those sorts of things. Realistically, if it were an issue of the size that would impact us, it would also probably be a federal issue because beekeeping is migratory now on a grand scale. So obviously the hive that I have in my backyard is that's my baby, that's my pet. It's relatively, isolated, but realistically pollinators are used all over the country to feed people. So they have to move. And so this is it is, that's why these organizations exist. Yeah. You want
Members,
me
any
to
other questions?
keep going or no? Okay.
No, ma'am, I'm sorry, not to the tightness of time, but we do have another person from your association that may have been listening and be able to help it out. And
Well, that was disappointing.
I understand, Ms. Ralph, we have a timeline of 2 minutes, and we announced that in the beginning. The chair now calls Chris Barnes. All right, sir, I've got you as Chris Barnes. You're here on behalf of the Texas Association of Professional Bee Removers and yourself, and you're against this bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Please proceed.
I want to start out by making it clear that we recognize that the vast majority of this bill is actually really good, and we don't oppose most of it. Our opposition really boils down to 2 points. The first is in section 1, section 131.001, paragraph 3. The definition of a beekeeper, it's expanded to include people who lease or possess bees. In other words, if a property owner leases hives of bees, either for pollination or for ag 1D1 open space, that person is now being classified as a beekeeper. The comparison would be my young brother who lives up in North Texas, has 18 acres of property that he lets somebody ran cattle on the Grace's fields, nobody calls my brother a cattle operator or a cattleman. These people are not beekeepers. They don't have any beekeeping operation. They don't do anything to manage their bees. That may seem like a minor thing, and in the long run, it probably is, except when taken into consideration for our second objection, which is in 131.045 beekeeper registration. These people are being included in the beekeeper registration. I believe Ms. Ralph mentioned that that's some of the reasons that people have bees. They would be expected to be part of the voluntary beekeeper registration. We have a couple of other issues with the beekeeper registration. The first part is that it's being expanded to other people that really aren't beekeepers. The second part is the length of time for the beekeeper registration. The previous apiary registration, which is what this...
Similar to the last one, though. Similar to the last witness, sir, I'm going to have to cut you off at the bell.
I understand.
As we'd announced in the beginning of this meeting, that we're having to limit things to 2 minutes. Members, any questions for this witness? I do have. Yeah, we've got one. Representative Rosenthal, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Barnes. So, in my looking at this, and I'm certainly no lawyer, so I'm not. I just want to be clear on the legislative language and what this bill changes or doesn't change. So when we look at bills, it's my understanding that when we look at the bill draft, the new part is underlined and stuff that's being removed is struck out. So apologies to the folks in the room who are not actually looking at this piece of paper, but your objection to the change in the definition of beekeeper, it looks to me like statute already says beekeeper means a person who owns leases. What's being added is possesses controls or manages. So, and then or manages was already in there. So they're adding possesses or controls. I think if I'm correct about that, and I'm going to ask you if I am, I do think someone who possesses or controls bees could probably be called a beekeeper.
I agree with that.
Okay. That's the question that I had.
Thank you. Members, any other questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
I have a copy.
We'll pass this out. The chair now calls Dorothy Stillman.
That 2 minutes starts now. Go.
Now go. No, I can't do that. I've got you as Dorothy Stillman. You're hearing about the Texas Beekeepers Association and yourself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Start.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to let you know that I am here on behalf of supporting Bill 4538. I have been a beekeeper in Williamson County for 10 years. I'm a master beekeeper, and I am now the current president of the Texas Beekeepers Association. We have worked with many different stakeholders and industry groups to reach agreement on this language for the subcommittee language for House Bill 4538. We believe these proposed revisions for 131 will update, simplify, and modernize processes within TAIS, allowing it to operate more efficiently and continue to provide the important services needed by the Texas beekeeping industry. At the same time, some of the changes, such as the interstate permit processing, will make it much easier for our large migratory beekeepers. I do understand and recognize that removing that list of interstate beekeepers might disrupt an already set process of having a nice list of beekeeper removers, but I think we can figure a way around that easily. I also wanted to let you know that while most of the regulatory functions of TAIS never impact me as a smaller scale beekeeper, they are a very important source of education and resources for all beekeepers, especially with respect to good beekeeping practices that lead to healthier honeybees. The Master Beekeeper Program was established in 2014 by the TAIS, and it is a very wonderful program. It's self-supporting. It's a 5-year educational program. There are over 500 master beekeepers in Texas now. I'm one of them. There are 32 master beekeepers. I'm one of those master beekeepers. And we have one master craftsman. So the educational options that TAIS provide us are a wonderful option. You'll look at that. Perfect.
It was excellent. It didn't seem like you were talking that fast, at least not as fast as I try and
I am
blabber.
from Texas. That was
It's
fast.
been wonderful. Look, it sounds like we've got a couple of good bee bills. We're just going to figure out, make them a little better.
Yes.
Members, we've got about 20 minutes left, though. Any questions for this witness? Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4538? Anybody else wish to testify on House Bill 4538? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Casal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Modernize and streamline, agreed upon by industry experts. I close.
Yeah, I hope you can work with Representative Meza on something, which I think her bill's in your bill anyways, but that's all. Members, any questions? None. Thanks, sir. The committee substitute is withdrawn, and if there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there an objection? Chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. All right, Chair lays out House Bill 4413 and recognizes Representative Guillen to explain the bill. Representative Guillen, I'll remind you, look, you've got one witness, by the way.
Okay.
Heads up on that. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll make it quick. Members, the livestock and cattle industry has a long and proud tradition in the state of Texas. Many of the industry's best practices have been handed down from generation to generation. Branding livestock is one of those proud traditions that lives on until today. Yet these traditions also have, over the years, been joined by modern technologies and practices which make the industry more efficient and set it on a path of success for generations to come. By the same token, the practices supporting this industry can also improve their efficiency utilizing modern solutions, and this is exactly what House Bill 4413 aims to set in motion when it comes to the process of registering and cataloging brands used on livestock. Re-registering brands is a process that happens every 10 years, with the next one set for 2031. Yet even in 2021, this was a process that was mostly paper and pencil driven, with ranchers needing to register their brands one by one in each individual county, and oftentimes with different processes from county to county. This inefficient bureaucracy creates unintended consequences, such as complicating and prolonging the process of compiling the branding registry managed by the TSCRA, or making it more difficult for sheriff's offices to quickly identify the rightful owners of a stray livestock to reunite them. 4413 seizes the opportunity of the current moment to form a task force of key stakeholders across industry associations, law enforcement, and government to utilize the 8 years ahead of the next round of brand registrations to develop a more efficient and more effective process around livestock branding, which will simplify registration for the rancher, streamline reporting for the counties, and reduce the costs and complications for law enforcement to deal with the strays.
Man, thank you. That was a great layout. Whoever in your office spent a lot of time on that. It was well written. We'll bring you up.
ChatGPT.
There you go. We'll bring you up after this witness. That is excellent. The chair now calls Scott Williamson. I'm not sure he's joking or not. Sir, I've got you as Scott Williamson. You're here on behalf of the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, and you were for this bill. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. Good morning, Chairman Kane and members of the committee. My name is Scott Williamson. I'm the Executive Director of the Law Enforcement Brand and Inspection for Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, composed of 30 special rangers and 65 market inspectors stationed across the state. TSRA supports committee substitute for House Bill 4413. Texas registered.
Secretary, we don't have a committee substitute before us, FYI. So just remind you, we're testifying on the bills originally filed.
Okay. We are in support of that bill. Texas registers approximately 130,000 brands cumulatively between 254 counties. In Texas, a brand is registered independently in each county it is used. The Texas county clerks are the official record and are singularly responsible for the registration in their respective counties. Most Texas brands are handwritten to brand books in the county clerk's office Many Texas producers operate in multiple counties and currently required to drive to each county, completing an individual registration and fee per county. The law also requires each clerk to submit the brand registration to TSCRA, who compiles a collective record. TSCRA receives no funding for this process. It is established to assist TSCRA Special Rangers with livestock identification and investigation. Registration is a time-consuming and costly paper-based program currently. TSCRA worked with the Texas Clerks Association in the past to create an electronic program for the 2021 brand renewal, but was unsuccessful. The premise behind the work in 21 set out in this bill is a system of registration that would operate like the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles Registration online platform. Registration funds and records would remain in the county purview, but would be remotely registered, renewed, or searchable through a singular online portal. An electronic, unified, and mandated system is needed to protect the integrity of the brand.
I think you're right, and I think other members may think so as well. Members, any questions for this witness? All right, thank you, Mr. Williamson. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4413? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Guillen to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did send a sub last night, late, and that's why you didn't have it before you. The committee sub changes a date error and adds a few more stakeholders to the task force. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
One moment, sir.
We'll follow
Yeah,
up.
but follow up on it. Right. We can get that out. Members, any questions for the author? Hearing none. The committee substitute is not withdrawn. I was about to read that. Don't read that line. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there an objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 276 and recognizes Representative Bernal on behalf of Representative Cortez to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chair. I'm laying this out for Representative Cortez. Texans in growing numbers want to raise food for themselves, for the health of their families, and the pleasure of gardening. Growing a home garden has numerous benefits, including increasing access to fresh, nutritious food, reducing and stabilizing families' food bills, and providing physical and mental health benefits from growing plants and caring for animals. The COVID-19 pandemic and recent dangerous storms have given new urgency to this issue. Our dominant food production system has proven to be both fragile and subject to disruption in a crisis. Grocery store shelves went empty as the conventional food system was unable to adapt to new distribution needs. Food bank lines were staggeringly long. Unemployment rates remained high, hampering Texans' ability to provide for their families. HB 276 would first prevent cities and HOAs from prohibiting their residents from having front yard gardens and up to 6 chickens or rabbits. However, the bill would continue to ensure reasonable restrictions like prohibiting roosters, limiting the number of animals, and requiring a minimum distance between residential structures. Ultimately, there will be adequate oversight to ensure all parties are satisfied. We look forward to working with the committee officials to see this legislation through. Thank you, Chairman and members, and I reserve the right to close.
Great bill. Members, if it's okay with you, we're going to move on to witnesses first, then we'll bring up the bill's author. Chair now calls Leslie Province. Thank you. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yes.
Okay. See, Leslie Province, you're here on behalf of the Food Policy Council of San Antonio and yourself. You were for this bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please continue.
The Food Policy Council of San Antonio for several years has worked hard with our city departments, urban farmers, and many other constituents to improve access to healthy food for all in our community. This includes 2 rounds of improvement to the zoning code to increase the availability of urban growing, which we learned doesn't necessarily benefit residents of homeowner associations. We also worked with the city to increase the number of fowl, usually chickens, from 3 to 8 in San Antonio. This brought about people's ability to show off their coops in our annual coop tour. Before the ordinance changed, coop owners lived in fear of losing their flocks if the authorities learned that they had more than 3 birds. This transparency has resulted in a wonderful and educational community event that just seems to make everyone happy. Many chicken keepers we're in touch with have had to move out of the city limits, contributing to urban sprawl because their HOAs didn't allow backyard chickens. In 2011, a bill was passed in the legislature that prevented HOAs from prohibiting xeriscaping rainwater collection, and other drought-resilient practices. It's our belief that the right to produce food at a household level is just as essential as that. During the pandemic, there were many food shortages, including eggs, and again, more recently, inflation knocked a hole in many household food budgets, again with egg shortages. Keeping a few backyard hens helps with disposal of food waste and produces healthy and inexpensive protein for families, along with endless entertainment. Please support the right of Texas families, no matter where they live, to feed themselves.
Yes. Excellent, excellent. Members, any questions for this witness?
With your permission, I would like to read a supporting statement from Mario Obledo of the San Antonio Food Bank.
I do not think we can do that.
Okay.
But we could, I will, if you could have it submitted to this office, we will be sure to get it distributed to all the members. That'd be okay?
Yes.
We're going to print it out, so I'd be happy to, you maybe talk to us after this. We'd be happy to get it written down. Representative Bernal will make sure everybody gets it.
I'll do it.
Okay.
So that is important. We will make sure his voice is heard, but we can't do it.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate the food bank's support of this.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Emma? Thank you so much. Thank you. Chair now calls Jeanette Vela. Howdy, good morning. Got you, Jeanette Vela. Here I'm gonna have the Texas Legislative Action Committee and yourself, and you're against this bill. Is that correct?
Correct.
Please proceed.
Chairman Kane and members of the House Committee, my name is Jeanette Vela, and I'm here on behalf of the Texas Legislative Action Committee, or TLAC, testifying in opposition of HB 276. Texas Legislative Action Committee is a statewide association of homeowners associations. Our members represent approximately 6 million Texans that live in POAs. We respectfully oppose the bill as filed and request that the author of the committee consider an amendment to address our concern. TLAC opposes legislation that removes an HOA's ability to self-govern. Ultimately, POAs are private entities built on the fundamental right of private property owners and freedom to contract and associate. Community associations form to protect these rights and value the ability to self-govern. Proposals that override POA rules in state law infringe on these private rights. They also presume that a single statewide solution exists for all neighborhoods. This ignores the unique circumstances of a particular community. HOAs generally oppose a one-size-fits-all mandate. On the matter at hand, we believe that there are reasons why some communities may not want backyard chickens, rabbits, and front yard fruit and vegetable gardens. Some communities are densely built and could be very difficult to enforce the regulations that are allowed in the bill without having an effect on prohibiting the activity which the bill does now allow. Furthermore, some neighborhood communities value the uniform or cohesive aesthetic. This attribute will protect property values and be the reason an individual buys a home in a particular community with these characteristics. In some of these neighborhoods, growing fruit and vegetables in the front yard may detract from the aesthetic preference. We do not think that one size fits all as a state law on this subject leads to the best policy outcome. We would like to see the bill amended to allow property owners associations to have a local process for deciding what is best for their community. It is our view that community associations do a good job of balancing the needs of an individual homeowner with the needs of a broader community, and that we ask you to allow that to continue.
Thank you. Members, any questions for this witness? Hearing none. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your testimony. Chair now calls Amy Blea.
You got it right.
Yes.
That's amazing. Nobody ever does that.
I wasn't confident, though. All right, we say it confidently. Amy Blea.
Yes.
You were here on behalf of Homemade Texas and yourself. You were for this bill. Is that correct?
I am. That is
Please
correct. So the mission of Homemade Texas is to advocate for policies that allow Texans to be self-sufficient in their homes. And House Bill 276 perfectly embodies that mission. Growing up, my parents kept animals, including chickens, and grew vegetables to feed our family. Even in lean times when money was tight, there was always food on the table because of the garden and the animals that we kept. It provided stability and food security for me and my 3 siblings, which is something that many members of my community struggled with at the time and still do today. With food prices that are rising at a rate that outpaces inflation, egg shortages, and supply chain issues, it is getting more difficult for families to make ends meet and keep food on the table. While I would love to have the ability to provide for my family in the same way that my parents provided for me and my siblings, I am unable to do so because I currently live within an HOA that prohibits me from having any hens in my backyard. HB 276 allows Texans to provide for themselves and their families while also providing reasonable rules for odor, noise, safety, and sanitation to be able to uphold the principles of the HOAs. So I ask for your support for House Bill 276, and I thank you for the opportunity to come and speak today.
Thank you. Members, we have 3 minutes left. We pass the 10-minute mark. We will kill this bill. Do you have any questions for this witness? None? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 276? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Bernal on behalf of Representative Cortez to close on the bill.
Thank you, Chair. I will get that letter from Mr. Robledo to the committee, and I close.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Representative Bernal? Hearing none. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there an objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. The chair moves that the committee stand in recess, no final adjournment or recess of the House or during bill referral if permission is granted. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the motion prevails. The committee stands in recess.
Almost. Almost.
Roll.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll get that letter from Mario. I talk to him all the time. I was just at the food bank last week. We're doing a food drive on the 22nd.